Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Today I'm going to do a review of a game. I haven't done a game review in a little while. Not a role-playing game tonight. A board game, a classic movie tie-in. Tonight I'm going to be looking at The Cannonball Run. This is one of my favorite movies from childhood and adulthood, if I'm honest. It was one of those movies that seemed to always be on HBO. Which, when I was a kid, HBO was cable. That was kind of it at first. Next door neighbors had it. We'd go over there. And I would say anytime we were over there, we either had Ice Pirates, Beastmaster, The Big Red One, or Cannonball Run on. And if it was Cannonball Run, that's what I wanted to do, was sit and watch that. And so my wife got me this a while back. It does have a sticker on it, I notice, from Toy Fair. Let's see if I can get that up there. $8.50. I don't know if that could be from back in the day. That might be about the right price. So let's take a look at this game, see how it stacks up as a game. Because while it is fun to have tie-ins to TV shows and movies, you still want the game to actually be a good game. Alright, so this is one of the ones, instructions in the box, which is always nice, because if you ever buy one of these things without the instructions in it, sometimes they can be a pain to get a hold of. So, I got a few criteria that I use when I'm looking at these games. One of them is the game design. In terms of graphic design, does it do a pretty good job of evoking the movie or using the movie or the TV show that it's tied into in the design. And I'd say for this one, not too bad. We got the board, and see if I can, you got some scenes from the thing. That's Roger Moore getting shot out of his car at the end. There's the ambulance. So you got a few little images there. It's not bad. It's not great. It doesn't really seriously get into it in terms of that. The playing pieces, are these little cars. Okay, well that's pretty good. That, at least they're cars. They don't represent the various cars. Now, one of the weird things, though, which makes me wonder, are these not the original playing pieces? Which is possible. But they come, also inside the thing are these little surfboards. So, let's see if I can. So you can kind of snap the surfboard. I don't know why. There's no surfboards in Cannonball Run. There's no crying in baseball, and there's no surfing in Cannonball Run. And there they are. So there's that part of me going, were these replacements? But they are the right colors. It's a Cadaco or Cadaco game, and maybe that was something that they already had in stock from some other game. And so they just used it and threw in the surfboards. So not too bad. I mean, at least it's cars. We don't get like the ambulance or anything. And now it's a card-driven game. And you could see, graphics-wise, not too bad. Gun It. Got a few of those. 400 miles. There we got the ambulance. There's gas again. 100 miles. So it does take advantage of some of the actual cars that are in, that are in the movie. So I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5. In terms of design, it's not groundbreaking. It's not gorgeous. The images they used on the board, again, they kind of are a little repetitive. And they're a little small. But all in all, not too bad. All right. So 3 out of 5 when it comes to that. Next up is the rules. How do they work and how well do they mesh with the game? In other words, if it's your basic roll dice and move around a board, but it has some pictures of the Bionic Man on it, that's not necessarily a real clever use of the rules. Does it evoke the feeling? Well, these guys actually made a smart move and they made a bad move in terms of the rules. The rules to this game are essentially the rules to this game. Mille Bornes. Now, if you have never played Mille Bornes, you need to get it and you need to play it. It's a lot of fun. My sister and I used to play this game summer break like it was going out of style. So Mille Bornes is also a card-driven game. It does not make use of a board to track things. And it's an overland race. And so with Mille Bornes, you get dealt a hand of cards, and you play them, and then draw a new card, or if you can't, you discard and you draw a new card. You initially want to get roll, that means that's the green light. Once you have a green light down, you can start playing mileage cards that represent how far you've gone. And while you're doing that, you can also play attack cards on your opponents, and they can do the same to you. Here, for example, is speed limit. When that's played on you, you can't put down more than a 25 or a 50 mile distance card. And in order to do something about it, you got to get another card, and then you got to get the roll. So, like, for example, here's flat tire. So somebody plays flat tire on you, you can't move until you manage to get the spare tire. Whoops. And then another go card. Okay, so it's a pretty simple game. It's really fun. You play a few rounds of the game to see who wins. Nice and simple. So they basically took those rules for the Cannonball Run game. That was nice. Smart move, right? Overland race, Cannonball Run. Perfect. Take existing rules, they're going to work. Now, the one difference, well, there's two differences. And one of them is the problem. If you look at the board, you can see that, for example, so for the yellow track, you have, this is me trying to actually be able to see, there's your start. And instead of you just putting your mileage cards down on the table to see how far you've gone, you actually count it out on the track. Okay, no problem there. In some ways, maybe even better. But the problem, and this is where they made a change that screwed up the game. In Mille Bornes, you can use whatever distance cards add up to, I think it's 1,000 miles is what you're doing in there. Doesn't matter what they are. Now, if you use the 200, you lose some points, and it's a points game because of like unsafe speeds. And generally you don't care because you really just want to get that 1,000 miles as quickly as you can. In this game, you need a specific number of each of the distance cards in order to win. Specifically, you need 8 100-mile cards, 4 200-mile, 2 300-mile, and 2 400-mile. And therein is the problem. Because if we look in the deck, and I'm going to have to take a second here, there are cards that take away some of your specific mileage cards. For example, Wrecker, let's see. No, that's not right. It's the Crash one. Highway Patrol, it means you can't go faster. You know, I'd have to look again at the instructions. But there's a specific cards that will actually take your mileage away. Now, in Mille Bornes, your mileage is never taken away. You might get stopped and you might get stuck, but you don't go backwards. Here you go backwards. And when my family and I played the game, there were 3 of us, we all got to a certain point where we kind of got into a loop. We couldn't generate enough miles to make up for the miles that we were taking away from each other with the negative cards. And we literally got stuck there for like a good, 15, 20, 30 minutes of really going nowhere. And until I finally said, okay, we're done. We can't finish this game. Now, I think you could make a couple modifications to the game to make it work. One of them might be taking some of the negative cards out of the deck. I think there might be too many of them. The other one is get rid of this cards you need to win concept. Just pile up enough mileage, in this case, 3,000 miles, and you win. It's because obviously it's very frustrating. I was looking at throwaway there. It's very frustrating that you can't, quite get ahead at a certain point. If you're going to take other rules to use in your game and make modifications, you got to play test the hell out of it to make sure you have not screwed up the balance in the rules. And I'm afraid in the Cannonball Run game, they screwed up the balance, and the game, frankly, doesn't work. Now, I can imagine kids back in the day probably not even realizing they needed specific cards to win and just going for it. But on the bright side, it's a good looking board, bright colors. This happens to be a really nice copy that my wife got me. You got the cool little cars. It would have been cooler if they had been like the ambulance and the rolls and what's have you that were actually in the movie. The graphics on the cards are pretty nice. And with a few modifications, the rules are probably more playable. And on the bright side, it does make good use of the theme of the movie in the rules. So it feels like a little bit like the Cannonball Run. Maybe some of the negative cards in there could have been drawn from the movie. Some of the tricks they were playing on each other, like a spin out or, speed trap or what have you. But overall, pretty good. So was the game fun? Well, sadly, rules as written, the game was not fun because we couldn't even finish it. So in terms of do the rules make sense? Do the rules take advantage of the movie's theme, etc.? Again, I'd probably give it if they had worked, I'd give it probably a 4 out of 5. Since they didn't, I got to give it about a 1 out of 5 in that regard. And is it fun? I got to go 1 out of 5 because the rules didn't work. I mean, sometimes rules work exactly perfectly, but you just don't have that much fun playing the game. In this case, it's almost the other way around. We were having fun playing the game, but then the rules killed us. So, rules as written, I cannot give Cannonball Run a very high rating. What do we give it? A 3 out of 5, a 1 out of 5, and a 1 out of 5? So that's like a 5 out of 15. So that's not very good. If the rules were modified, I think you'd have sort of a 3 out of 5 game. It's pretty fun, you know. It looks pretty good. Not bad. If you could find a copy that's not very expensive, I'd say go ahead and do it. If you are like a Cannonball Run fanatic and a collector, well, you got to get it. I mean, and the box top is pretty cool. You got a nice image of the cars. You get to have the actors and stuff on it. So it would definitely be a nice display piece. Just needs a little bit of work on the actual rules. So there we go. Can I recommend Cannonball Run? Rules as written? No. Rules may be modified and tinkered with a little bit if you got the time. Yeah, you might want to get it. It's not really a wacky race game, but it's a race game. So I think that'll do it for this video. Kind of a short one, I know. But, you know, it's a relatively simple board game based on a goofy movie from the 80s that I deeply love. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and maybe subscribing to the channel where I talk about various kinds of pop culture. Going from, you know, I haven't done any of these yet, but I'm going to hit some silent movies. So going from the 20s all the way to the 2020s. But probably focus mostly on the 40s through like the 80s. That's kind of my sweet spot for pop culture. Maybe share with a friend who you think might be interested in some of this silly nonsense that I like to cover. In the meantime, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have some fun out there. And I'll see you next time in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.